And to this point, from the beginning, the CSA revenues that were generated at that time, it came with an existing loan against it that revenues were going to be taken from to pay down that loan that was borrowed from the CSA revolving account or revolving fund. That was done internally in the County of Kern, but it had to be paid back. So as the revenue that would normally come to the district, revenues were taken from that to pay down that loan, and then we were given the rest of the revenue.
You mean when we first got it in November 2008, we got it with a debt to the county of $51,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we started out in a deficit, and subsequent to that, boards borrowed revenues to keep the function of the parks and recreation going, and basically did that to show the community that Parks and Rec were viable in the community. They tried going to the people to go out for a parcel tax, and those polls or votes were resoundingly turned down. Today, the function of the 63.5 to continue moving that pool opening and functioning that would be a loss of about approximately $50,000. Now we have
that's just for the pool.
We have saved revenues in that pool function over the year because we didn't put water in it and didn't have some of the cost because we had repairs to do. The repairs, however, are going to probably offset some of the savings we had over the past year.
How much did we spend in repairs?
About $12,000.
I was reading in the paper that Cal City has an $88,000 repair bill. We don't have any major like that coming up.
No, these were tiles, and there was what was the other? The recoating, surfacing of areas, I think. So suffice it to say, the pool's cost right now is significantly higher than I believe that the district wants to get into, because it's once again going to put us in a losing proposition. And I think the second issue that's on the agenda in regard to the park itself is going to also play into this entire picture as the revenues are dwindling quickly.
I guess the question I have tying those two together is, if we do a staff recommends and vote to close the pool, if someone come along here in the next couple of months, they still have the ability to open it if they choose to?
If they were to be able to move that quickly and take it over, I believe so. It's not that far along. I think they could probably accomplish that.
So I don't know too much about pools. I know you put water in them, you put some chlorine in them, and other than that I really don't know what it takes to make a pool operational. You also mentioned that lifeguards have to be hired, but I assume you can hire a bunch of lifeguards in a couple of weeks. I wouldn't.
Well, no, we can. However, when you look at the swimming season, lifeguards are available in a short window because everybody's looking for them. And to have the certified lifeguards, there's a ratio that we have to provide. So we normally hire about 7 lifeguards in order to take care of the amount of people that we have at the pool. So if it goes into the middle of the summer, say, and somebody wants to open it, they may have a very difficult time finding lifeguards because they may have taken jobs elsewhere.
Please bring the audience up to date on the deficit for the Parks Department.
I'll defer to Brad, but it's right at the $2 million mark and growing.
So, you know, one of the things I think that people need to know is the fact that we have a major deficit and we can't continue to grow that deficit. We have to take some kind of action to relieve ourselves of that deficit.
That's correct, and both of these subjects are kind of going to be melding together because I think it's important to point out that the pool opening is a decision that we're taking only for logistics. If we are, we need to move on it quickly. If we're not, then we know what to do, and then move into the next issue on the agenda. But you're exactly right. The deficit is big, and there's no means of getting a handle on it unless, and in the next presentation, the recommendation would be to, one of the alternatives would be to establish a park plan, go out to the vote of the people, and see if they want to fund parks and recreation.
What does that cost?
The park plan,
When don't come out for a vote?
let's see, if we go out to a vote in this next November, it's an off year. I don't know, is there a consolidated election?
There's a UDL election for the college.
Then we might escape it and be somewhere in the neighborhood of 18,000.
Otherwise,
And each time it's been resounding no vote.
last time was 2-1, no.
I think we talked about it 3 times, but I think we backed off and didn't do it. And I was gonna say, either we do that, go to the public and say, here's, do you want us to continue to be charged with parks? If so, it's a $45, $50 fee per parcel per year, or we don't have to charge your parks anymore.
Mr. Glennan, it's more like $280 per parcel, because at the $45, all it's doing is keeping the park the way it is in present. The people up at the far end of the district
You're
will
saying,
want to see something that, you know, they're gonna have for their parks too.
you say it would be $240 per parcel?
$280 per.
How much would that bring in?
280 would probably bring in about 2.5 million.
That would be
There's only about 10,000 parcels, is what you're saying?
way more.
Actually, maybe it's not that much.
I think so, that was less.
There's 5768 taxable parcels.
Okay, so I thought.
So the calculation on that,
6,000 parcels at $100 a parcel would be
600.
$600,000.
$600,000. Yeah, but one of the things that we're familiar with, that I know that Mr. McKay, when he was on the board, was something known as the benefit assessment district. Everything has to be, there's a zone of benefit that gets smaller the further away you're away from an item usually, and is in West Park. It's not a regional park, it's a community park for that community of West Park. It doesn't really attract people from long distances for the most part. The only way that it could get to the point where it attracts people from a long distance, as you know, if you have a coach who says, I want you there at 6 o'clock in the morning for swim practice, then you're coming from all over the community. And the only entity in town that really has the ability to get a coach to tell somebody to come there at 6 o'clock in the morning to either swim or practice tennis, whatever, is the coach who works for the school district. It's not something we have. We don't have a Parks and Recreation staff. We don't have somebody, we used to have a recreation department. But even then, I don't think we had coaches that had that much authority that said, you show up and be there. With the enthusiasm that kids generally show up for, as evidenced by the 27 kids on the tennis team, the girls' tennis team this year for the first time we've had a tennis team. So there's the interest out there, and coaches have a lot more influence than I think Parks and Recreation through the RCSD does.
The question I think that needs to be asked and answered, or the comments would be that $40 to $45 basically stops the bleeding on what we have today. If we did that, people in the community would not see a difference in the service in the community. So if we went out to another parcel tax at any time, because we developed a plan, chances of us passing a parcel tax then would be slim to none, because they would have paid and not seen any difference. And they would be asking the question, what are we gonna get for our money now?
And not only that, for 2 elections, we spent over $250,000 this summer, going in the hole, and we're going in the hole another $250,000 summer after that, if we wait till the presidential election, which would be a better one to pass a parcel tax. That's $500,000 spent waiting, and on an improbable result, I think we have to have a 2/3 vote on that, is that right? They have to be 2/3 yes. So it's, I know we're talking about both agenda items together. Perhaps we need to do, is that okay?
No, we're staying with the first one.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, if they're not gonna come up with money to operate parks, then we drop parks. And I want the community to say that, rather than this board to say that. I would like the community to say, we do not want to fund parks, fine, then the charge that we have for parks is wrong.
I think they've already said that twice.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they have.
Hang on a second, I think Coach's got a good point there. It's not something we're considering today. Well, we're not considering giving up on Parks and Recreation as a purpose and power of the RCSD. That's something that can be put to a vote later on. And I think in the long run, maybe to establish its own Parks and Recreation district in the community, separate apart from those community service district, might be more appropriate. However, that's not what we're considering today. That's a good long-term thing to look at.
I think it's short-term.
Well,
We need to push that now. We've been negligent on it for years.
it's a short term.
So there's a motion and a second. Now we'll open it up for public discussion.
Who had the second?
Mr. Wallis.
My name is Russ Williford. I'm the eldest son of Jim Williford, who the park was named after. We moved here in 1959. At that time, I went through trying to count up. There was approximately 8 pools in this town that I could come up with. At this time, most of those pools have already closed, either because of insurance or whatever. The population of the town at that time was about 2,000 people. It's approximately 10 times that. Mr. McKay, your reserve, the response area is about what, 25 to 27,000 people that they respond? That's over 10 times the number of people. And we have 1 pool. I learned to swim at Harvey's. Some people know it as Town and Country. Some people, I heard, learned to swim in my dad's reservoir, or Jerry Williams' reservoir. Now my dad would go out and run them off, usually after about 2 hours. He'd let them get good and cooled off, because it gets, during the summer, pretty warm here. But he'd wait, and he'd always tell us, don't let them touch the bottom, tell them not to touch the bottom. Because we had taken fines from the old Macko plant, or calcite, that drill mud, and line the reservoir so that it wouldn't leak. I think we need to keep the pool open so people can learn how to swim. Cal City just closed theirs. The one they had at the airport in Mojave, it's closed. You have to go to Lancaster now if you're going to swim. Most of the reservoirs around here are closed up. They went to sprinkler irrigation. They don't do the flood irrigation. So I think it's important to have a pool that's open where people can learn how to swim, to recreate. And I'll be back up for item A, B. Thank you.
Talk to you about the history of that pool. The pool was put in, given to us by the county, who had filled it full of gravel. The RCSD at that time was a community organization. working with the community and doing everything to help everybody else. So our crew went out there and took all of the granite out, everything like that, and took all this stuff out, got it ready, got the heaters repaired. All of our people did all that work at the RCSD when I was sitting on this board where you are, sitting right there. And what happened is that when we finally decided to have the dedication, we dedicated it to Jim Williford, who was a great man. I knew him, he was a great horseman. He did a lot of things, and the park was dedicated to him. At the same time, we were working with the schools, and the schools provided parks, and this was this addition to it. The Williford stepped forward and did a lot of stuff to repair that park. And what happened is that the schools at the present time are still doing their part. But that park belongs on your roads because you say in your bylaws that you have parks and recreation. It doesn't belong to somebody else. That is your property. That is our property since I'm a taxpayer and a member of this area. What happened is that the Jim Williford is in school right now, and we used to have working with the schools. West Park now is now going to put in a complete field, all grass, baseball diamonds, everything else that goes along with it, will be then put together with the schools right there at West Park Field. We had plans to do all that stuff. So now you have the pool, which is our pool, which the kids could swim in, learn to do stuff. It's all ready to go. And all of a sudden, now we have the cooperation between the schools and the community service district. I know all of a sudden everybody throws up this thing about money. But what happened is, Mr. Landsgaard, when he was sitting on the board as the lawyer for it, was asked by, when they were over the 10 building, was asked to come up with a proposition, do we want to offer or have parks? And on the same thing, he also had a ballot measure about, do you want to fund these parks? Which was, I think, is something he would do. And what happened is that when the vote came back, it was overwhelmingly they wanted to do parks. But the one that was on there to pay for it was no. Now, I've been in this community since 1980 and I get the whole thing. But anyway, that's where this thing started for. When the old board, way back on the tin building over here, where'd they get that tin building? Turkey Farm, I think. Anyway, you were the attorney at the time.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were.
Thanks, Bob.
And so what happened is, but we really need the Jim Williford Park for this community. I know you have financial strains and stuff like this, and this debt here and that debt there. But I'm sure in all of this multi-million-dollar budget, you can come up with something to open the pool for the children of this community.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Judd Miller. You don't know me, but I'm a graduate of the class of '74 in Rosamond, so I've been here a long time. I'm actually here just for insight, for consideration, and I've had athletic programs for years since high school that I've ran, and very successful ones. I currently run a program for City of Lancaster, an athletic program that's been very successful. Most athletic programs I've seen, in terms of parks and recs, and pools and so forth, if you just have the activity, there's really no revenue and it becomes a huge expense. But when you have structured programs to offset the activity, now it becomes a revenue generating function. And I would like to see Rosamond consider that instead of treating this as a huge expense, as most parks and recs do, actually create an active program to generate youth programs on a quarterly basis, 8-week basis, whatever the case may be, to actually generate revenue for Parks and Rec and be able to maintain these activities for our youth. But we do have a serious issue with youth, in Rosamond because they had no place to really let their energy out. So just want to provide that insight, and I have seen this work. You manage to charge brigade a lot of revenue just from structured programs that you wouldn't get just having an activity open in Parks and Rec. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's the general fund. Because we're an enterprise funded budget, what comes in pays for the operation of whatever function we're supporting, and we have zero coming in parks.
Mr. Webb brought up a good point that actually triggered my memory. I too learned at Triple R, as I knew it, where to swim, but there was a summer it was closed down, and Mrs. Speed and the Rosamond nonprofit organization called Rosamond Parks and Recreation put some money together, I think along with the school, to bus the kids to the Antelope Valley College. Actually, we got one summer of instruction at Antelope Valley College, swimming at the college pool. There are other options out there, I guess, is one of the points. The other point is, it's good that you're speaking up now. I don't think we're the vehicle to open that pool and keep it going. There may be other options. Maybe we can work with the school to bus kids to the Navy College, or maybe the school could do that, take over the parks from the county. For those of you who aren't familiar with the superintendent of schools for Southern Kern Unified School District, he's present, and I don't know if he wants to introduce himself. His name is Jeff Weinstein. There he is over in the back with his tie on. So he's been hearing what you have to say, and hopefully his school board members have heard as well. But the bottom line is, from my perspective, we don't have the vehicle to debt $250,000 every year to keep that park open. It doesn't make any sense. It's actually not fair to the rest of the community in the long run. It's certainly not fair in the short run. There are some other alternatives out there maybe we can help with. Maybe we can have someone else share the burden if we have to. But right now, the staff recommendation is to close the pool this summer, and that's what my motion is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Staff did recommend closing, right?
You know, I might, if I might, staff recommended closing it, but I've got to tell you, from a fiscal standpoint, it's the only decision that staff could recommend. From being a resident of Rosamond since 1954, and like Russ Williford, I've swam in those areas that he talked about, even the Williams Reservoir. And one thing that's near and dear to me, and it doesn't look like it from your positions generally, is Parks and Rec. Because I grew up here. I know that back in about 1964 is when they built the Little League Diamond and opened it. And the Kern County Parks, we have nothing to show for it but what we had clear back then. And our community has suffered from the lack of parks and recreation services. I'm sensitive to that, but I have a responsibility to your board as well as the people in recommending good fiscal recommendations. And but it's not without a heavy heart that I do. But it's the only thing that we can look at. I have to agree with Mr. Landsgaard's comment about maybe we're not the vehicle, because the school in taking over the United Street Park did a wonderful job. They also took us out of an extreme bind, and a bind that really benefited the ratepayers of this community because it made a revenue swing for us. So it's with a heavy heart that recommendation comes down. It is with the hopes that we find a vehicle that can keep it open. With the only pool in the community, this board needs to ask the question also of themselves and of the community. If the pool is so important to the community, why is it only a small portion of the community is paying for it? And that's why I think the next issue is, that's why I put the alternative on it.
Do you know the attendance of the pool for the summer?
We don't, we just know the revenue generated from that. we can get that information. It's larger than you would think. It shocked me, but it's rather large.
I have one question. The number 250,000 has been bandied around. What would it cost to keep the pool open this summer? Just the pool. What added cost would that be?
I'd have to ask Brad if you have refined that cost yet.
The quick and dirty calculation that I was able to comprise for operations of the pool last year generated an approximate loss of about $50,000.
So it's not 250, keep it open another year, keep it open another year, but losing 50,000 roughly.
Losing 250,000, everything, park and everything.
Between the park maintenance, the CSAs, the pool, all of that, that's where the $250,000 approximate figure is coming from.
But closing the pool will only change that by 50,000.
No. The thing that you have to take into consideration is boards in the past have faced the same dilemma. They've asked the people to fund the parks and recreation. The people said they wanted it, but they don't want to fund it. And the deficit has grown to $2 million, $50,000 more, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. There's contention between management and this board, myself and the manager, all right? My contention is that these were illegal loans to the Parks and Recreation because of the fact of one thing. In the loan documents that I have seen, there is no manner for the Parks and Recreation Department to pay back the loan. That's illegal. All right? But the same thing is, I hear what you're saying here. Hey, it's only $50,000. That's today, it's only $50,000. What about next year? Another $50,000. Now we're actually above $2 million in debt. And it just continues to grow. We've got to stop the bleeding. Russ?
What I think you need to do, put that bond issue before them again. But educate them. You've got to tell them what it's going to pay for and where it's going to go. I only remember one vote to fund Parks and Recreation.
I think that's all there was.
That's all I remember, and I voted yes. Put it on there again, and I'll vote yes. And I'll be out there at Albertson standing in the front door handing out pamphlets. But you guys need to get on board and push it too. It's great that Mr. Weinstein's here, but Southern Kern Unified School District is Southern Kern Unified School District. They're for education. On your banner it says Parks and Recreation. We had one park when I came here. Bakersfield didn't hardly take care of it. That Little League field was built by the community, not Bakersfield. That's been maintained primarily by the community. Doug Carl was the big pusher on the Little League field. My dad helped a little bit. My dad was he could sell ice cubes to Eskimos and get you in there to help give him $1 or $2 to fund it. And if he was here today, he'd be standing up here saying, boys, get on the bandwagon. You can get that $158 a meeting. Earn your $940 a month. Please, think about it.
Bill Parkman. I've lived here in Rosamond since 1992. I've never been to the swimming pool, but it'd be nice to know that I could go to the swimming pool when I wanted to. But what I hear is a lot of pushing to take and get rid of something, instead of looking for ways of making it stay and stuff. You have a school district who needs some of these resources for education. It appears to me based on my experience in construction management, that you've got some joint use possibilities here between the school district and Rosamond Community Services District. You just have to map out all the responsibilities and all of those things, and it can be a win-win situation for both parties as well as the community. Thank you.
Quote unquote conveying it to the Southern Kern Unified School District. I read the staff report, it indicates what we would be doing is giving it back to the county. And then the county can figure out if they have another suitor, so that they could make the same deal with the Southern Kern Unified School District as if they made with us, or they could just take over the pool and run it themselves. It is the county's responsibility. To run that park, it always has been, until we took over in 2008. This pool's been there since 1992, is that right? And it's the county's park. The county always lost money. Second district supervisor in 1998 or 1999 came down and said, I'm going to close that park. Williford, since you're on the Rose Municipal Advisory Council, as you're the eyes and ears for the second district supervisor. That former second district supervisor is here in the room. He knows very well. He had a big hearing about that. People were not happy about the pool being closed. But the bottom line is the county was losing money then. It's never been a winning proposition for whoever's had it and whoever's managed it. The item says to convey the park to the Southern Kern Unified School District. If we're going to look at that, I think the proper action should be as the staff recommends, and that is reconvey it back to the county, not to the Southern Kern Unified School District. And if the county wants to convey it to somebody else, that's up to the county. But I think the staff has the right direction in their staff report, but it doesn't show up in the agenda item that way. But it basically says that we're losing $250,000 with the Jim Williford Park in general. Am I correct there, Brad? $237,000 a year we're losing on that?
I'm sorry, where are you getting that number?
The staff report, it says must transfer $237,000 to cover costs of operations already borrowed for fiscal 13-14.
Already borrowed.
Okay. And so how much are we losing then?
You want to know per year? For
Per
the
year.
park function itself,
Yes,
inclusive or non-inclusive of the pool?
inclusive of the pool.
About $230,000.
We're losing $230,000 a year, and we're getting that money from our discretionary fund to pay that. We have a discretionary
This
fund.
is net of expenses.
And we're
losing money.
we're losing $230,000.
Discretionary revenues minus more expenses equals the loss.
Oh.
So you'll take the loss and add the discretionary revenues to it. That's already inclusive of
So
the
we're
discretionary
losing,
revenue.
about like $460,000 a year.
No, $230,000 a year.
230, but that's still substantial. It's something that, it's not a regional park. It is a local park. It's one that should be funded by the residents in the park. People are asking for different funding mechanisms. One of the funding mechanisms I'm more familiar with now than I was 2 years ago is how the street lighting was done. That is the type of funding mechanism that should be used for that park. If there needs to be on the vote goes out, it should be the people in that area because they're the one that benefit from it. Again, the only way that's going to benefit the whole community, as Mr. Miller said, if you had some programs that are available for the whole community, that would be one way. But that's been tried and really hasn't worked that well. When we had full-time staff in the Parks and Recreation, we lost money that way too by having an administrator and all those other things. But the bottom line, it's still a local park. It's not, it doesn't magically become a regional park just because there's a pool there and there's a couple tennis courts and there's basketball courts. That's just the way it worked out. The bottom line is that there is somebody who can, if the school district can put used to it, then I think they should be allowed to talk to the county about getting it from the county after we get it back to the county and let them make up their minds on how that works. It shouldn't be us giving it directly to the Southern Kern Unified School District. I think that would take the politics out of it. And if there's other suitors involved, then they can get involved and see about getting the park back from the county. But certainly, the county does maintain the Glendower Park. You may not like the way it's being maintained now, I suppose, but I know as well as you do, that varies from year to year, it gets better, it gets worse. But the bottom line is, we don't really have a vehicle. We have a total, I think, 16 employees, 18 employees, maybe 16 full-time, 20 overall. Most of our employees are very well trained in making sure that our water is good and our sewer doesn't go the wrong way. That's their primary concerns. It should be. They're not trained to go out and maintain parks. They're not maintain pools. They're not trained to be lifeguards. They're not trained to even to mow lawns or even maintain a watering system. If we have $230,000 in discretionary money at our disposal all of a sudden because we gave the park back to the county, there is so much more we can do with parks. It's unbelievable. One of the things before Mr. Russ Williford joined the Rosamond Hills Board that we debated was getting 3 acres from the Rosamond Hills and leasing that and putting another ball field there. That is something that can be accomplished. If we can help out, our money could go a lot further with that, put another ball field in. That's just one example of a lot of things we could do if we're not taking 100% of our budget. There's 5 purposes we have: water, sewer, street lighting, graffiti abatement, and parks. If we're taking all discretionary money for all 5 of those and putting into parks, we're taking away from other things that should be used. Street lighting being one easy example. Other examples would be in the water and the sewer area, but certainly it's all going into the West Park pool. We could have a community ball field there a long time ago if we were able to use that discretionary money for something other than maintaining a pool in a local park. The bottom line is we're not being fair to the people, most of the people in this community by hanging onto that park, number one. And number two, we're not being fair to ourselves. We are the government. We need to understand that we don't need to be grabbing onto more power and control. If we want to let this go right, we want to be honest with ourselves. We need to let go and see where it goes. There are other entities out there that can make it go, county, perhaps the school district, but we have to let it go. At this point in time, it's been, as Mr. McKay said, an illegal loan. That's the base of it. To keep on treading down that path is I think it's both immoral and wrong, and we need to, as government officials, recognize it's time to give up some power and some control and let the people decide down the line.
Steve, the maintenance on
There's absolutely zero money coming into the RCSD for the park functions, and the discretionary revenue of approximately $230,000 is kind of band-aiding the broad gap that is getting even broader. I have spoke to the county in regard to the possibility if another entity such as the school district were to take interest, if they could swing the CSA revenues towards them. Although they haven't had time to vet that through council, they said that, well, we contracted with the RCSD, they believe without qualification, legal qualification, that it may be possible to do that with the school district. I have spoke with Jeff Weinstein, superintendent, but he's here today. And I think that he could better answer or give you an idea from their perspective what their position in regard to this pool would be. And I would yield to him in that regard.
I was going to ask the
I have one question before we do that. It's an asset on our books, the pool and the property. How much is that asset? Do you have any feel for that?
I can get back to you on it, but I don't know off the top of my head.
In other words, there's a value to that park and to that pool, and we own that value right now. If we give it back to the county, we just lost whatever that asset is to the Rosamond Community Service District. And if they gave it to the district, school district, like they gave it to us, then they would pick that asset up. But it is an asset, and I'm guessing that it would be more than, it being a couple $1 million, I would guess, that asset. It's interesting, the community may be able to go together and West Park buy the asset and it'll be theirs if they generate the money to do it, you know.
We're gonna hear from him now.
It is an asset that we have right now that we would give up.
We are currently building the West Park field, which is the elementary school field just down the street from the park. We have to engage in our fiduciary responsibility of taking care of that field, because that's on our land. So what we have talked to the county about, that is, if they do receive back the property for Williford Park, what we would be willing to do is to enter into a 90-day research period where we would negotiate items with the county and see if it actually is feasible for us to do it. That's something that we, just as if you are making the decision not to take out of your general fund money to fund the entity, we actually have law and CDE regulation that says we are not allowed to take money out of our general fund, which is geared for education, to use for outside co-curricular and extracurricular facilities that are not directly used for education. So those are all things that we have to look at. Those are all things we have to research. It'll take us at least 90 days to put together a business plan, and then we would make a recommendation to our board to see if we would enter into an agreement with the county. But as some of you have known myself for the last 3 years and how I run the school district will not enter into agreement if we lose 1 penny on anything that we do. Our job is to run it profitably, just like we do the United Street Park. Run it well and do it the right way, but do not take any money away from education. Frankly, what I would do as the head of the school district is whatever agreement you have with the county is something that we would have to renegotiate, make a deal. I take Steve's professionalism and expertise saying that it's a loss leader, whatever we do. Well, we wouldn't take it unless we could renegotiate with the county and make sure that whatever fees are transferred to us through the county, that we could do it in a profitable way. I have confidence. We do have a complete staff. We have over 400 employees in our school district. We have a complete staff that take care of all our facilities as well as our fields. So we do have a little bit of an advantage over the water district in that sense, but still, we would be in negotiations with the county, and that's something that we would do. But again, we can't take any action, or it would be silly for us to go into that 90-day research period unless you guys have already made your decision and the county is going to take over the property, and then we could spend time, energy, and resources dealing and negotiating directly with the county. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Was the county trying to give Landsgaard Park to us?
I'm sorry? Yes,
And they wouldn't give us enough funds, wasn't that it?
I think the county was trying to dump a whole bunch of stuff on us because at the time, if you recall, there was a kind of a direct downturn in the economy. It was and to go to Mr. Landsgaard's comments about dates, it was actually 2002. It was in my last year, and we were entering into the summer, and I had to close that pool because although contrary to popular belief, that was never a county park, never. It was a community park that was built by Kaufman and Broad, and in order to run it, it was charged to the people there. And when Kaufman and Broad dropped the second phase of their development and reverted their tract map back into the parcel map, they didn't want to pay any more and were going to double the assessments on the people of the park, and I told them absolutely not. Well, I was supervisor. It then eventually, in that year, cost me, as a county supervisor, agreeing to shake down my fellow board members for money, $85,000 to keep it open in that summer. 2002, wherein the community, over 100, had agreed to go out and work towards a community county service area to pay for it. But I think we got something like 19 votes back, and it failed resoundingly. And subsequent to that, when I left office beginning of 2003, Don Maben had to come in, and he effected the closure by filling it with dirt. So the pool has had a long history of losing money. When the county of Kern dumped it on the RCSD, they actually knew what they were doing. They were getting rid of something that did not make money. And so here we are, some time later, dealing with exactly the same issue of giving it back to the county. And I'm sensitive to the third party in-between type person, especially when we're in contracting operations of that with the County of Kern, for the revenues that we get to help mitigate that cost. So it would have to go back to the county first, and it would be cleaner for all parties concerned to go back to the county first and let the school district, if they so choose, negotiate that with it.
What's your recommendation?
Pardon?
What's your recommendation?
Well, again, with that heavy heart that I talked about before, it's with the amounts of revenues that we're losing today, it makes absolutely no sense for the RCSD to continue down the road losing that, because we're not a general fund budget. We're an enterprise budget. And we don't have the means of paying that back very quickly. We do have the means of paying it back because we do have some discretionary revenue. But if we got rid of the park 63.5 CSA, we could tighten down our spending control on the other two assessment districts, utilize the savings from that to assist in the debt service of a new loan, plus the generated revenue that would be available, that you have rightly pointed out in the reserves, could assist in bolstering that debt service, set the plan, and that's what we have had planned for the 15-16 budget. So this is something that we have taken very seriously about funding the debt service on that line.
Southern Kern Unified School District, if we wanted to make the motion to convey or quit claim back to the county, that's something we'd have to renotice.
The agenda item lists the conveyance of Jill and Williford Park to another public entity. I think we're within the scope of that item. The public is on notice that the district is considering conveying Jim Williford Park to someone. Changing the recipient, I don't think takes us outside the scope of the notice.
And underneath that too is we have 2 90-day agreements with the county. Would that also be included in the motion if we agree to convey the, in other words, there's agreement that we have to give 90 days notice before we terminate the operating agreement for the park and for 63.5 and a separate one for 63.4 and 63.6. Both of those agreements require 90 days notice. And would that also be included in a motion to convey Jim Williford Park back to the county?
It is my recommendation that whatever motion we may be to direct staff to take the steps necessary to begin the steps to convey Jim Williford Park to the entity the board determines in that motion. And among those would be giving the appropriate notices.
Okay. Steve, can I ask you a question?
If I can make a statement before I forget, I've got a bad memory. I mentioned to the president in the agenda that the recommendation would come out, and it might be good because if you notice that the ultimate vote be taken in a regular meeting, because this initially was going to be a workshop, and then carry that back to a regular meeting. And if the board desires at that time we can add it on the agenda. We've had the discussion in regard to this. We can add the 63.4 and 63.6 to a recommendation that ultimately you would give us at that meeting if you'd like. But now my recommendation, although the recommendation in regard to what we should do for discussion purposes should be carried to the next meeting, and then we can add the 63.4. I would recommend that it be carried to a regular board meeting for decision.
Okay,
Put that off till if we put this on the ballot in the fall. How about not transferring it to land?
Well, I'd be giddy if we sent it out and got a good, positive vote from the people, but then I've got my responsibility to, on the financial side, that tells me I'm conflicted right at the moment.
we go accordingly, no.
I'd like to see a vote of the people accepting the fact that they're going to lose a pool and possibly lose a pool, and see if they would do it. But from a financial position, I've got to stand on the recommendation before you. The other thing is on 63.4 and 6, I'm going to have to do some research on that in regard to the contract that we have for the administrative or administration of those facilities by our landscapers.
John had his hand up.
That's just what I was going to say too. There's a contract. I don't know what the terms are, how close they are to being up.
I guess the other thing is if we're going to give the parks, the Williford Park back to the county, those landscaping districts cover more than the park?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so that's a separate deal. Is that something that we might want to give back to the county as well? Because if, for example, the school wanted to get into that, that would sweeten the deal for them a little bit. I think those numbers work a little better. Or if you want to renegotiate with the county, that would be something to take it.
I don't know that the numbers would be that much better for the school district and utilizing those two assessment districts would generate that interest, because there's, although it's revenue, they've got costs associated with that revenue.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, does it give someone who's negotiating with the county to get a good, a reasonable deal to take over those things and say, look, we'll take those off your hands too, if you give us this, the overall picture. Does it make them, put them in a better bargaining position?
Here's the thing, you're asking for a question off the top of this, the answer off the top of this head. You want to table this till next Wednesday. Staff has then time to research and come back and give you a relevant answer.
Good, yeah, that's my impression. Good.
It's a regional park, it's not a general park. When you said triple R, where you learn to swim, that's a mile further. So, and we lived in town when we went out there. And it was some park, I believe that the school actually paid a nominal fee to Mr. Harvey for the use of the pool during that time. And it was some kind of school function. Did I catch that Glendower is not part of RCSD's?
It is not.
County, it's always been county.
Well, I know it was county, but I thought we took over all of them.
No, it's county. They're not watering it either. I called them yesterday.
Yeah. Ole, I know my dad is, and I think yours is too, probably spinning over in their grave about wanting to give any property back to the county. Voters give the parks to the RCSD, and they didn't make any provisions for yearly funding. Let's get a bond going. Let's look into grant money. Alternative energy. They're begging to give money away to, but there's a little problem there. And we know what that one is, don't we?
Well, if they wanted to name it, other than your dad's name, would you go for that?
Hell, they can call it Ole Landsgaard Park for all I care. And we know how that goes.
No, but first, if we want to name it First Solar Park, you would go for that?
I don't care.
Okay.
And Dad wouldn't care. Dad would be embarrassed by his name being on the park. He didn't go out for the park glory.
Okay.
Let me first explain, I am not a former board member. As some things have said, I used to say I wasn't related to anybody, but Ole, if you don't tell anybody, I won't either.
All right.
But I could be part of the
But
unruly crowd.
she looks a lot more like me than she does like you, so.
Oh, I don't think so. She's better looking than that. We need to investigate putting a bond on the ballot or finding grant money. We could use the Parks Foundation as an entity for tax deductible donations. I got $100 in my pocket right now that I'll put into it. Match it with me, Ole?
I have a question about that. Why don't we use, Rosamond? It's a 501c3.
For?
Setting up things for the park.
Because that is for the seniors. We've got the foundation. That's what it was designed for. You talked about a soccer field or another baseball field on part of Rosamond Hill. You betcha. I'll see about getting you a lease. We talked to Joe Romero, and they were going to do it. But it would be a lease. I'm sure that our board would agree to that, because I want to fill that up with.
Now, your neighbor is the Southern Career Unified School District, so you want to lease it with them maybe, or do a joint thing there?
They pay us $101 a year right now for their turnaround. $1 more than Tapia. That's all I wanted.
Okay.
But to stay back on, step up to the plate. Step up to the plate. I'll help in any way to get a ballot passed. People have already voted down in your lighting district. If anybody's interested, Costco's got, and I'm not sorry, Mr. President, I'm getting off topic. Costco's got solar lights that are very good. I just put one up for $29.99.
Hey, Rob,
This is a good one, not the Harbor Freight.
you can buy them for $10.
Well, we paid $75 for others. But I don't have any street lights. I'd have one up there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And,
Any school facility during school hours is restricted. All our school facilities, as the community well knows, that once school, depending on when that school lets out, once that school lets out, it's the community's facility. So just like the West Park field that we're building right now in the center of West Park, at 2 o'clock approximately, the gates to the school close and the gates to the park that allow public access open up. And that's the same at Rosamond Elementary School, the same at Tropical Middle School, and the same for the high school. So on the weekends, it is also available for rental and all those type of things. But the West Park Park, I mean, what we're building right now is obviously open, and we're building it with a soccer field, also for softball fields. We do the facilities for the community. It's the community's asset. We use it to educate, and there are California Department of Education regulations that are designed to protect children. And so we follow those regulations, and that's where there's restriction comes of usage. But the actual schools are not my school, they're the community schools. Rosamond High School, they're long before I got here, going to be long after I'm gone, and you know, so it is the community. And every facility we have, including United Street Park, those of you who have gone to United Street Park lately, it's the communities. It is we own it, we operate it, but it is 100% the communities. We improved it and we gave it back to the community. And that is what we would do with Williford Park. As far as the asset stuff goes, we are a California state agency. If we're given an asset, whether it's United Street Park, whether it's extra land, it is not an asset on our books. It is an asset on the California state books. And that if we were to divest ourselves of that asset ever, like selling it, we would have to go to the CDE, our mother agency, and tell them we're divesting it. And then it would be up to them to facilitate the divestment.
Is that true for us?
No, I don't know.
So.
I don't know.
So on our books, if we all, obviously, the amount of facilities and that we own goes into hundreds of, you know, very, very expensive. But if you were to look at our financials,
It's not there.
it's not on the financials because it is on the California state financials, not my financials. And as far as passing a bond goes, I just would like to remind everybody and thank everybody who voted yes. We passed a $24 million bond to build a new school in November. So I think I don't know about the pool usage. I have no back of who uses it, how much they use it, and I don't know about the tennis courts. I drive by, that's about it. I'm concerned about the school, but it took a large amount of marketing from us, a large amount of goodwill that took us 2 years to market to get the bond passed. But we're talking $24 million bond, and it is to buy a school. And I think Steve Perez made an excellent point that the reason the bond passed when we went back to our voters is because they knew exactly what we were going to do with the money, and they knew they were going to be able to see and use what we're going to do with the money. In other words, in the summertime, when we break ground on the new elementary school, they will see it, touch it, feel it, it's there, it can be visualized, they understand why the school is needed, they understand what it's going to be used for. And I think that would have to be a large part of the marketing in order for the community to accept it. Because you do need a 2/3 vote, and that is sometimes incredibly difficult to get. Mojave Unified School District, just north of us, went through 2 elections of failure of bonds before they finally passed it. And when I talked to Superintendent Otten up there, it was just, the community just didn't have the information in front of them to make the correct decision, or the decision that the school district would do.
Mr. Weinstein, as the ranking professional educator in the community,
Yes.
a past athlete yourself, and father of an athlete at Irvine.
Right.
The question is not meant to embarrass, but do you feel teaching the Rosamond children how to swim is important for their success in life?
I think teaching the children anything we can is important, whether it be swimming or anything else. But I do believe that it is our fiduciary responsibility as educators, citizens, and members of the community in order to offer the youth of the community flexibility and choices. If it is my personal feeling, not as superintendent, but my personal feeling as a parent and a member during the working hours of this community, that the minute we take a choice away from a child, we've done the child a disservice. That's it.
Thank you.